Hello, everybody, and welcome to another CFEA Spotlight. This is where we highlight an organization, an institution, or an individual who is making strides in our community, in the arts and entertainment, by way of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we have been so excited to have some amazing movers and shakers come share the headway that they're making in this area. And we had Joseph Walsh, the artistic director of the Garden Theater. We also had Joyce Arbusius, the artistic producer for the Imagination House studios here in Central Florida. And both of them were able to share such a wealth of knowledge with us and get us to understand what it's going to take for all of us to work together towards a more equitable arts and entertainment community. And we are so excited today because we've got an amazing special guest. But before I introduce my special guest, I'm going to introduce CFEA's interim co-organizer. This woman, first of all, when I say her name, you know she needs no introduction because she is a phenom in this community. You cannot say theater and not say her name because, you know, she's just synonymous with everything that is theater in our community. And she is Roberta Emerson.
Ooh, girl, synonymous. Yeah.
Yes, you are. Roberta is not only helping us make headway with CFEA in this community, but she is also the new associate artistic director at the Garden Theater. She's also the artistic consultant for CFCA Arts or CFC Arts. Mm-hmm. And she is the theater director at Mount Verde Academy, which is a conservatory for theater for high school students. So needless to say, this woman is incredible. She is a graduate of the NYU Tisch School of the Arts. And what are your other degrees? Because you have like 12.
I don't. University of Minnesota Guthrie, and then NYU School of the Arts, and currently pursuing a PhD. So,
see what I'm saying, y'all? I mean, I am honored to be in the presence of greatness. And, you know, when we talk about Black excellence, you embody that in every single way. And so it is such a great honor for me to walk with you in this journey of lifting up our community because, you know, we have so much work to do. And when we have a voice like yours speaking loudly and leading the charge with us, it just is, you know, it's amazing. So thank you for being here with us. And Roberta is going to lead the conversation with our special guest tonight. I'm so excited about this woman, can I tell you, because like Roberta, she is a powerhouse. And so I kind of just, you know, this is the CFEA Spotlight, but I deemed this the Powerhouse Thursday because, you know, I was like, all of this excellence in one space, you know, the internet is about to be broken. So to tell you a little bit more, we're having join us tonight Lavon Bracy Davis, and she is not only a licensed and barred attorney, y'all. She's also been with the Dr. Phillips Center for the Arts for 13 years. She is a huge voice for the community with Dr. Phillips. She's the senior director of community programming, which is such important position. And she is a graduate of Howard University, and she is also my sorority sister of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. It is imperative that I note that she pledged the Alpha chapter of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated.
No comment.
She sits on the board for the PACE Center. And she's the chair of the Florida Council for Arts and Culture. So, like Roberta, this woman is all that and a bag of chips. Welcome, our friend, Lavon Bracy Davis. Hey, ladies.
Hey. Mika, that was some kind of introduction.
Well, you know, I have to do my sorors.
Wait, that was some kind of introduction. Roberta and I both gonna need to take you with us to introduce us everywhere we go.
Right,
yeah, that was it.
Listen, I am a fan. Y'all can tell. I'll be shouting it. Listen, I'll be your hype man. I'll be like, yes, they are all that. Let me tell you. No, but seriously, I am so honored to have you both here because the work that you all are doing, both of you women, is so very important in this community and beyond, because people need to see us leading this charge. They need to see us at the helm of not only this work for equity and inclusion, but they need to see us running things. They need to see that we are well able and fully capable of, you know, being in leadership positions and serving the community well, which both of you do, you know. So I think, you know, your presence is vital. It's crucial. It's necessary for little girls like me to look up and see, you know, there's someone who looks like me up there making things happen. So, you know, I want to be y'all when I grow up. So thank you for being here. I am going to duck out, and Roberta is going to be in charge of this discussion for tonight. And, you know, it might get real good to me and I might have to come back.
But come on back, Mika. Come on back.
But I am just so excited about tonight. And thank you, Lavon, for being willing to be spotlighted, because it's so necessary. That the reason that we do these spotlights is because this work is heavy. It's very heavy, you know, and a lot of times you can feel like I'm doing. What are the results? What is happening? And so we do these in order to let the community know that there are things happening, and the progress may not be as fast as you want it. It may not be as large as you want it, but there are steps that are taking place. There are people who are plowing away to make our future better and brighter. And so this is a way to encourage everyone, to let everyone know, here are some of the great things that are happening. Here are some of the good things that are going on. Here are some of the things that we can be proud of. So I think it's just so important to do that, because we can always point out what's wrong and what needs to change and what needs to grow. And we're going to continue to do that. We will do that. But along the way, we have to stop and say, okay, you know, we still have this far to go, but look at what we've accomplished. Look at what we've done. And so that's the purpose of the spotlight. And we just want to make sure that we give our accolades and we show the community what's taking place. So, ladies, let the fun begin.
Yes.
So Mika knows how to make brown girls blush, right?
Right. I got all red in the cheeks and stuff. I didn't know what to say no more. That's a lot to hold up to, but I am really excited to talk to you. So what's interesting is we both, not at the same time, but we graduated from the same high school.
Yeah.
And the same theater program.
Yeah.
4276.
Yeah. Dr. Phillips High School, I'll tell anybody that it was an excellent foundation. It was an excellent springboard for where I am today. I actually kind of take steps back and recall like all of the things that have impacted my life and to where I am today. Dr. Phillips High School and that visual and performing arts magnet was an excellent start.
Absolutely. And I remember growing up in that program. So shout out to KJR, if anybody's online, tag her so she can see her girls up here, right? But you know, I remember going through it, sometimes thinking it was one of the hardest things in the world, but I always remember her saying that, you know, the most important thing you do is to create a legacy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I read your bio and I look at this amazing work that you've accomplished, and it is the epitome of creating a legacy. Aww. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, what that means to you and how that kind of influenced your journey going forward?
Yeah, well, I mean, it has to start at Dr. Phillips High School. And, you know, that was the performing arts magnet, the cream of the crop here in Central Florida as it relates to training, especially 20 plus years ago when I graduated in 97. that with Dr. Phillips High School, I went to Edinburgh, Scotland, and I went to London, England. I did several international trips, and I really, it was a foundation for my craft. And then, when you talk about leaving a legacy, when I left Dr. Phillips, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do as it relates to performing arts.
Right.
And, Ms. Regario not only just encouraged for conservatories and what have you, but when I mentioned Howard University, she pushed me because she knew the rich legacy, even being a historically Black college and university, the rich legacy in the College of Fine Arts. And so there I found myself at Howard studying theater, in the same vein as Felicia Rashad. And, you saw that, Felicia Rashad. Who just became,
yes, I've got Howard University.
Come on here. So, and that's not only the school or the college I graduated from, but it's also the school within the college that I graduated from. And it was the same program. So, and Howard, like Dr. Phillips High School, was also a springboard to all of the things I did thereafter. So then from Howard to coming back to Orlando, and I went to FAMU Law. I was in the inaugural class at FAMU Law.
Wow.
The year that it opened. Here's the thing. I taught drama at an elementary school, right? And I did it for 1 year while preparing to go to law school. And you know how God sometimes doesn't necessarily tell you what you are to do, but he kind of tells you what you're not to do. I knew at that moment that I was not an elementary school drama teacher. That's what I did know. I knew that was not the calling on my life. So, but then from there, went to law school, practiced for 4 years. But as I mentioned to you, Roberta, when you're in the arts and when you're drawn to artistic expression, no matter what avenue you go or how much you detach yourself from it, you get back to it sooner or later. You have to, because it's how we succeed. It's how we breathe. It what makes us move, So I practiced law for 4.5 years in Lake County, and then found about the opportunity at the Dr. Phillips Center. It was just an idea on a piece of paper then. And I presented myself to the Dr. Phillips Center, and I actually worked for the first 6 years for the development team, raising awareness in the community that the Dr. Phillips Center was coming. Because it was very important to me that people knew at that time that you had the state-of-the-art art center, which millions and millions of dollars, tax dollars and private funds were going into this institution. And it was important to me that everybody knew that this was their art center that was forthcoming. Everybody, arts groups and minority groups and cultural groups, everybody knew. So I spent some time doing that. And then from there, I transitioned on the actual staff for the Dr. Phillips. So in short, that's my legacy.
Nice. Amazing.
Yeah.
And that's also, it's the beginning of your legacy, right? Because you have been an advocate for this community for a long time, and you come from a family of service, right?
Yeah.
Your brother's a state senator, your father's a pastor, correct? Am I correct?
Yeah.
It's a life of service.
Yep. Yeah, and it's kind of how I was raised, Roberta. Like my mother, who holds the same name as me, her name is Lavon Bracy, and she was the first to integrate Alachua County school system, and the first Black person to graduate from Gainesville High. And so I grew up knowing that I come from a great DNA, and I need to blaze a trail. And from my mom to my dad, like you mentioned, was a pastor for over 30 some years. And my husband now being a pastor, my grandfather also pastoring one of the most prominent churches in Gainesville. And then, of course, my brother being Senator Randolph Bracey. So, yeah, service has always been a part of my DNA. It's what my family, what we do. We wake up every morning trying to figure out how we can bless somebody else. So.
Well, and what would you say to our community in terms of living kind of that life of service, and how would you impart that to the rest of us? I feel like with everything that's going on in the world, right, if we all lived a life of service, right, to each other, I feel like 9 times out of 10 things would be better. You know what I mean? What would you say to the community in terms of that?
I feel like number one, it's our obligation. You
Right.
know, we say service it is a choice, and I guess it is a choice, but especially for people of color, I think
Yeah.
it is our obligation. I mean, the generation that is coming deserves for us to be of service to them, and also it pays homage to the generation before us
Right.
that, you know, humbled themselves in so many ways. You can go back however many generations. So, I mean, I think we owe it. We owe it to, especially people of color. We owe it to the next generation. It's part of the reason why I think Mika mentioned in my bio that I serve on Pace Center for Girls. It's a girls' school for young girls who have experienced some trauma in their life that would benefit from a non-traditional setting, educational setting. And it's very important to me. And I've tried very hard for the work that I do at Dr. Phillips Center as it relates to the arts. I've tried very hard to bring those girls into the Dr. Phillips Center so that they can experience, so Pace can experience all that Dr. Phillips has to offer. It just kind of went without saying, you know, when I was invited to work with Pace, and quite honestly, I've had a somewhat blessed life and childhood. So that's all the more reason where I figured, you know, the blessings that I've had, some of these girls have lived some really tough lives, and
Right.
it's my obligation to be of service to them.
Absolutely.
And I've offered all my resources, everything from Dr. Phillips Center to the resources that I perhaps have with my brother in the Senate, all of that I've offered to the community work that I do.
Right. Of course. And you brought up your work, especially some of the work that you're doing at the Dr. Phillips Center. I really, really want to make sure the community hears about the Freedom Series.
Yeah.
I learned a little bit from you yesterday, and we need to know about what's going on there and support it. Let me say that again before you actually start talking. She's going to tell us about the Freedom Series, ladies and gentlemen watching. And Black excellence also has to be supported. I'm going to say that again. I'm going to repeat that. Black excellence has to be supported. So she's going to tell us what she's doing. And then we as a community are going to get behind her and we're going to support it, because it takes nothing to go and support. Because if we want these things going on in our community, right, we must go. We must fund them. We must patronize them. Yes. So can you please tell us what's going on with your work in the Freedom Series at the Dr. Phillips?
Oh, wow. And I love that. That's a tweetable. Black excellence must be supported. That's absolutely correct. So my job at Dr. Phillips Center, as Mika mentioned, is I'm the director of community programming. So since I've been there, I have programmed grassroots stuff and local stuff and community art groups and cultural programming. All of that has come through my desk and my department in some kind of way. But after, and if we could just be candid for a moment, Roberta, after all that happened with George Floyd and the racial awakening, should I say, that this country experienced, you know, a lot of industries tried to make really meaningful changes and pivots in their industry on how they operate. And it happened all over, from the banking industry to, you know, everybody was having DEI conversations and everybody was trying to ensure that, you know, they weren't a part of the problem. And that was excellent. That was good. You know, people were trying to donate to DEI initiatives. And I shouldn't say it was good. It is good. It's very important. So even though we are the Dr. Phillips Center, we already did cultural programming, and, you know, we brought shows and we did some shows that related to minority communities. We came up with this idea very specifically to launch what you call the Freedom Series, which is basically a celebration, an intentional celebration of African-American artistry, very intentional. So it's not just, you know, we're going to just band together just some random Black artists. It's very intentional as it relates to the Black narrative and the voice and artistic excellence in the African-American community and our contributions. So what I decided to program in this first round of the Freedom Series, and know that this will continue for years and years to come, the leadership at Dr. Phillips Center is 100% behind it. And there's some sponsorship for it for this first series, and there will be for seasons to come. So for this season, we opened up the Freedom Series with Bethune Cookman Concert Chorale. And why that was important is because, of course, BCU is a historically Black college and university. And if you think about Central Florida, you know, Dr. Phillips Center, we partnered with Valencia, we partnered with UCF, we partnered with Full Sail. We partnered with Rollins. We even partnered with Stetson. All of those universities being very close to Dr. Phillips Center in terms of in distance. Well, Bethune-Cookman is 45 minutes away in Daytona Beach.
Right.
So we said, we're going to partner with all these great predominantly white institutions. We also need to make sure we show some love to the historically Black college and university. So they presented a show on the front yard, which was so phenomenal. And I don't know if you all know about what the front yard is.
If y'all haven't been to the front yard, you're missing.
The front yard was a pivot that we did in the middle of the pandemic. If you know our industry, pretty much shut down. I mean, Broadway has been down for over a year now. And so what we did was we took the green space on the front of the Dr. Phillips Center and we created socially distant boxes where you can come and enjoy a show and you can order food from your box, and you never really, outside of going to the bathroom, have to leave your box. It was safe. It was approved by Advent Health, which was our hospital partner, our health partner. So it was a great initiative, and it's going to continue. It's going to continue for some time. A great initiative. And so we had Bethune-Cookman on the front yard as the headliner for the Freedom Series. And just a couple weeks ago, Roberta, when I tell you we had a really good time with Ty Tribbett, the gospel artist,
Yes.
It was so very phenomenal. You can't celebrate African American artistry without doing a little bit of gospel something, right?
Yep.
I mean, you just can't. And this is not just me talking as a preacher's daughter. Like you just can't. Like you just can't do stuff without having a little bit of gospel. That's our foundation musically. So, Tribbett, he turned our front yard into a worship space. Like it was really phenomenal. If you know one of his songs, "We're Gonna Be All Right," he wrote in the middle of the pandemic, and it was speaking to the pandemic. It was speaking to Black Lives Matter. It was speaking to George Floyd and all of that. So he presented as a part of the Freedom Series, and then our last show, not of the Freedom Series, but our last show on the front yard until we announce our second round of Freedom Series, is Wynton Marsalis from Jazz at Lincoln Center. And he actually wrote some pieces. Again, all of this artistry was happening in the middle of the pandemic. He couldn't perform. There was not a space. So all of these artists were sitting at their desk and at their keyboards and at their computers and on their instruments and creating artistry. So that's just what Wynton Marsalis did. He created some suites that he will perform on the front yard, along with some other suites that give tribute to social justice. So that will be the last show, May 21st, of the Freedom Series on the front yard. And then there's more to come that I can't quite announce yet, but the Freedom Series is to come.
You said May 21st.
Yeah,
we get that. May 21st. There's still tickets left, right?
Yes.
So May 21st.
Yeah.
Everybody, there are still tickets left. I'm checking in. People who watch, we have to support these things. We shout to the tops. Get us in there. Make sure we have programming. Make sure we're leading. And then if we don't show up, these things go away, right? So get in there. May 21st, when she announces the next season of the Freedom Series, pack these houses. We have to prove to people. Right. And I love what you're saying about, you can't showcase us without showcasing a little gospel and showcasing a little jazz. All of these things are so culturally us.
Yeah.
But we have to make sure people are aware, and I've shouted this the past year, right? We can sell a house as good as the next show. Right. But that's only going to be proven if we show up for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that's the most important part. And to have you there with a series like this at the Dr. Phillips Center for Performing Arts, I don't think people really understand what that means. Talk about being in a space, creating a space for us, in a space that's not necessarily innately supposed to be for us.
If I can add to that, Roberta, I have tried very hard, and any opportunity that I have to reiterate it, that I am the community's ally at the Dr. Phillips Center. I am your voice. And I've been there for 6 years. So, the programming that I put on and any red tape that happens, I am your ally at the Dr. Phillips Center. So what I need, if I could make a plea to the community, what I need is, number one, for arts groups not to be intimidated by the Dr. Phillips Center. We have special pricing for 501c3s and community and cultural arts groups. So don't be intimidated. It is your center. Like it is your place. It is yours.
Yeah.
But so not only do we welcome community arts groups on the stage, we welcome all people in the audience as well. There is no specific programming just for a certain kind of person. It is for you as well. Just like we all go to Amway and go watch a basketball game, you all can, Dr. Phillips Center is for you. We try very hard to ensure that pricing for tickets usually runs the spectrum. So, we do have high-end tickets, but at the same time, we try to make sure that we have some affordable tickets so that, people with less means or aren't in a financial place that, we did that for the front yard as well, especially in the midst of COVID where there was so much unemployment. So just know that for people who think that Dr. Phillips Center is not for them for whatever reason, just know that there you have an advocate and an ally, and part of our mission includes you. Yep, you that's watching, part of our mission includes you.
Yeah, use your resources, right?
Yeah.
If we have these people at these places, use them. That is your spot. I want to ask maybe 2 or 3 more questions. I'm watching our time. If you are watching and you have questions, please put them in the chat so that when we get to the question and answer part, we have the questions there and we'll come and roll back to them. I want to know where would you like to see our community go? Like if you could say anything was going to happen in the next 3, 5, 10 years, where would you like to see us as a community here?
Can I answer that just as a community person, and then can I answer that as a part of the artistic community?
Absolutely.
Just from a community perspective, and I know that this conversation deals with the arts, but I would be remiss just not to speak a little bit about social justice and how we as a society, and I'm not speaking to any certain different demographic, but we need to do some reprogramming. We need to, and I say that because I am a programmer, we need to do some reprogramming on how we see different industries, how we see people that are different than you. I'm just gonna say it, racism and bigotry is real. And we need to do some reprogramming if we're going to move forward. Like, we should never have to experience another moment like George Floyd, another moment like Breonna Taylor. Right. I'm married, and when I think of George Floyd, when I saw that video, I thought of my husband. Right. When I see Breonna Taylor, I'm just a few years older than her. Right. So we need to start with tolerance and understanding and understanding that just because someone is different than you, there's no reason to fear them or hurt them or be mean to them or say derogatory things about them or prejudge them, just because you're different. I mentioned the Freedom Series that is specific to African American programming, but I'm a community programmer. So as open as I am to African American artistry, I also am to, Afro-Caribbean artistry and opera and, all sorts of different kind of artistry. So I transition that to say, as it relates to where do you see our community going, I'd like to talk a little bit about our arts community.
Yes.
Because we need, number one, organizations like CFEA. We need African American artists and arts groups to make themselves known. We need them to become a nonprofit so that they can get funded. We need them. There are so many times I sit on the Florida Council on Arts and Culture, and there's so many times I am reviewing grant applications and I'm having to ask arts groups, what are your positions on diversity and inclusion initiatives? And that's great. And most of the time they have really good answers. But I would love to ask arts groups that are actually diverse, that are actually from a marginalized population, that are actually representative of that population, applying for some of these grants, as opposed to, or in addition to, some of these groups that are not of that population but are trying to expand.
Right.
I would love to just see more minority arts groups get money and get resources and get notoriety and come to venues like Dr. Phillips Center and thrive. So that's my hope and dream for the community. I hope I answered your question, Roberta.
Absolutely. And not only did you answer your question, like, you guys need to know, Mika and I got an opportunity to speak with her yesterday on more of a personal level, and she very much schooled us, right? CFEA is a very new organization, and we are learning our ropes. And when we got to talk to you yesterday, that was just, it was an eye opener for us, right? Because I think sometimes even myself, even Mika, people who, you see us and we have this confidence and we want to do all of these things, but even sometimes we stop ourselves short, right? With the notion of, well, I don't know, can we do that, right? Can we get that funding, right? So to hear you say to us what you're doing is not only needed, but yes, we can be the people in the circles to apply to the Culture of Arts and to the Center of Arts and Culture for a grant, right? Like that always seems about, and I'm sure we're not the only organization, right, where something like that seems too big for us.
You know what? And let me tell you something else about that. So when we did the pivot for the front yard, right? So the city and the county got together and they said, they had all of these arts groups basically saying they're not going to be able to survive for the pandemic. So the city and the county put money together and they gave it through United Arts, where there was a specific fund just for front yard. So that's how all of these wonderful arts groups, CFC Arts, and that's how, Josh Vickery that came to, they were funded by United Arts, who the city and the county agreed to set this money aside just for the front yard. And CC Tennille, that's going to be at the Dr. Phillips Center at the end of the month on the 28th. CC Tennille, her nonprofit was able to get some of these funds from the United Arts. So that's why it's so important that these different arts groups get together, organize themselves, so that, because there are resources, but oftentimes they're not organized in a way that we can get the resources to them.
And Lavon, so we actually have a question about that coming from one of our partners in Comrades, Joyce. She says, is there assistance for those groups to learn how to apply and what is available?
Yes. So I think everyone, if you don't know, United Arts is kind of the funding source here in Central Florida, where they raise funds and they also have several grants that they do. And I'm not a spokesperson for United Arts, but they do a diversity and inclusion grant. They do program support grant. They did some CARES grants. They did several grants. Now, I think, and you would have to reach out to United Arts, but I think you have to be a nonprofit and you have to have all your ducks in a row as it relates to the organization of your group. And also, the state does it on the state level. If you just go and just Google the DCA, Department of Cultural Affairs, and the Florida Council on Arts and Culture, there's general program supports. There are grants. There are grants for facilities where, like, let's say you want money to do some upgrades to your facility. There's general program supports. There's facility support grants or diversity grants. So yes, they are there. They are there. So those two resources that come off the top of my head are United Arts and the Florida Council on Arts and Culture.
Awesome. Thank you. That was a great question. And we have another one. Yes, Lavon. So how can we address some of the barriers of entry for organizations of color to this funding?
Yeah. So this is where I think I have impressed upon all of these organizations that actually disseminate funds is a couple things. Number one, the people that are reviewing these grants. So if you know how grant process works, you do a grant application. Some of them are oftentimes very lengthy, quite honestly. They ask for a whole lot of information that some of these startup organizations don't necessarily have. Then oftentimes they are looking for a organization that will highlight underserved populations, but they don't necessarily have a diverse population reviewing the grants, and that's problematic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
problematic that, you're asking questions about diversity and inclusion and different audience members or non-traditional audience members or new audience members, or how you're getting this art to underserved populations. And then you have people that are reading and reviewing these grants that are nowhere near close to that demographic.
Right.
And that's problematic in and of itself. I know the county and Terry Olson has been addressing that for quite some time about, getting the right people on his committees to review his grants. And at the state level, they're doing the same thing. And then also, that would bring a level of comfortability if people know that the reviewers of their grants and the people that are advocating for them on the inside actually look like them and understand their artistry. They would be more apt to apply. So that's part of the way that you break down some of those barriers. Is we need arts leaders to be volunteers to review some of these grants.
Yeah. I don't know if you actually, one of the Facebook users asked this question, and I don't know if we have an answer for this, but let's shoot for it. How can we change that? How can we change the fact that the people reviewing these things aren't even the people that we're looking,
Yeah. So the first thing I would do is I know from the state level, and I can't speak so much to the county level, but I know because I'm the chair of the Florida Council on Arts and Culture, we are always looking for grant reviewers. And what that would need is just an email. And if you go again to the Department of Cultural Affairs website, it will give you all of the information on how to send your resume and everything to be a part of this, to be a grant reviewer. Now you have to know the industry, you have to be able to speak on, on different art forms and your craft, and, ask the appropriate questions and give the appropriate commentary. But I refuse to believe that the people aren't out there. I just don't think that they're being connected.
Right, and utilized, or even know how to go about that. They can go about doing that.
Right.
Awesome, thank you. That.
Yeah.
Talk about being in school today. So we have about maybe 10 minutes or so left. I think that's actually a little bit much. If there are any more questions for Lavon, please go ahead and throw those in the chat. We are looking for those. While we're waiting for those, I wanted to ask, as a family person myself, how do you balance everything you do with your family?
It's a lot. I mentioned earlier that my husband is a pastor. And he's new. He just was called to church in December. So he's been a minister since we've been dating, but been a pastor for 6 months. And, when you are a servant and when you are selfless, it kind of is expected. So I oftentimes, and my husband fusses a little bit, but date night is oftentimes at the Dr. Phillips Center. Because it's convenient. There have been times when I've been doing shows and I've had to kind of sit down like I'm on date night, but really on my walkie-talkie, making sure that everything is going okay with the show. And it happens, but you have to be creative. And he understands my passion, so it's okay. He gets it. So I want to go back, if I can, Roberta, and mention one other thing. And I know a lot of what we're discussing has to do with artistry and arts groups. But there's one other thing that, because I did a press conference today with my brother, and he secured, and I just need to put this out there because I think it's important. He secured $30 million from the legislature this year for African American museums and African American structures and facilities. And what that means is, if anybody in the state, once this portal opens on June 1st, July 1st, anybody in the state can apply who has a museum or a facility, can apply to either put $500,000 to their actual structure that they want to buy or create, or $500,000 to refurbish a museum or a arts venue. So I just think that's important. Just know that like there's money and there's resources. He was able to get $30 million because I'm from Ocoee, and he wants to create a museum that will celebrate the legacy of July Perry. But that's just in Central Florida. I'm sure all across the state there are plenty of museums and structures and destinations of heritage and history where money is needed. Yes. And these funds that he got is unprecedented. So I would just ask for anybody that's on this that's listening to this would keep their ears tuned to that, because as soon as those applications come out, and if you have a structure that is dedicated to African American history and preserving history and telling our stories, there is money for you.
Yes. And can we make sure, if you are listening to this, go ahead and share this link, because this will be up for a while and more people need to hear that. Share it on your pages, write that in your comments, share. Again, we can't get these things if that's if we don't show up for ourselves and support ourselves and share ourselves and get that word out. Because that is awesome. That is someone actually said that is unprecedented.
Yeah.
Shared. Thank you. Good. Any other questions? I'm going to start wrapping up. Is there anything that you would like to make sure you leave us with?
You know, I think it's almost cliche, but I think it's important. I use Martin Luther King a lot, his life and his legacy. I attach it to, what am I doing? I remember, I believe he passed, or like almost before he even turned 40. He was really young when he died. And so on my 40th birthday, I did a lot of soul searching, asking myself, like, am I doing enough? And if he could do what he did, and there's a national day named after him just based on his impact. Ask yourself, no matter how old you are, ask yourself, what are you doing? And what are you doing for your neighbor? And what are you doing for your community? And if you have to think too hard about it, it means you're not doing enough. And there are plenty of community groups, arts groups, civic organizations where your voice can be heard. So what are you doing for others? And I think that was one of Martin Luther King's quotes, actually, life's most persistent questions, or what are you doing for others? And I ask myself that often. And there's been moments in my life where I felt like I wasn't doing enough. So
yeah, I think there are moments in our life that we all feel that way.
Yeah.
At most, that means you have to go harder.
Yeah.
And keep pushing, right?
Uh-huh.
That's where we get to, where we never have to see some of this stuff again, right? That service.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am I can't tell you how honored I am. I can't.
This was great. I spoke very candidly, just for people who are listening, to Mika and Roberta, and told them like how I have been watching both of them very quietly in the corner of the great things that they are doing. So this invitation is very humbling. I'm really thankful that you invited me to come and just chat with you a little bit about what I do and the things that I love and the community that I love. I'm from Orlando. Like you mentioned, my parents started a church here in Orlando. Like, I went to high school here in Orlando. I work here in Orlando. Like, I love this space, and I love what Orlando is and what Orlando can become. And I am just grateful to be in the space that I am, where I can help people, and I can help guide, and I can be a voice for our community as it relates to culture, and also our artistic community, because it's very, very important.
Amen.
We are so thankful to have you here, advocating for us, guiding us, speaking for us. You are a wonderful representative in this community, and we are so grateful to have you. I wanted to touch on two things before I let you go.
Okay.
I want to kind of backtrack a little bit to, we were talking about the funding and the decision makers of said funding. I think that is, and that's something that I'm learning in this new journey that we're embarking upon with CFEA, something that is so important. And I'm going to give a very real-time example, not to throw anybody under the bus, but so that organizations that may be funding who are watching, that you start to think about these things.
Yes.
For instance, when you have an organization that is run and led by people of color, and it is geared towards the art or the lives of people of color, you're definitely going to have social justice initiatives attached to that organization. No matter what, I mean, it could be an arts organization, but you're going to have that aspect because that is something that is so needed in our community. So you may have a theater or a museum that is providing meals to the community. And that's not odd to do because that's what we do. You may have a theater or a music group that also provides mental health resources, because those are things that are needed in our community and are needed by our artists. So we never separate those things. So I think that, a lot of times when people are making these decisions and they look at things like that and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't have anything to do with the arts, because they don't understand our communities and how we function. So this is why it is imperative to have voices in the room that can educate you on what the necessities and the needs are for our communities, because mental health, whether we are an arts organization, a music organization, an entertainment organization, mental health is vital for our community. Social justice initiatives are vital for our community. So you can't look at those things and say, oh, well, we're not going to fund that because that has nothing to do with the arts. It has everything to do with our art and our community. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that was so good when you talked about having the voices in the room that are making the decisions, that, they're asking for diversity from the organizations, but they themselves are not only not diverse, but they don't have an understanding of the organizations that they're asking things from, They don't have understanding. So go ahead.
And if I could just say, it goes back to that word that of obligation. We are a people who feel obligated to not just share our artistry, but obligated to our fellow man, obligated to the issues that plague our culture. So yes, we are not. Yes, we can sing, but I mean, look at Common. Everywhere Common goes, he also does voter registration. Where he performs. Everywhere. Like, look at John Legend. I mean, John Legend, he announced on one of the last time joining morning shows, like, he's not just singing just to sing anymore. Period. Point blank in the discussion. You're gonna get this song, but you're gonna get this message as well. Like, and if you don't want votes, he's not singing. Period. He don't want to sing.
We can't separate. It's like you said, we're obligated to it, and we don't get to remove ourselves from that because of who we are. And I think people, these decision makers, they not only need to have people in the room that can tell them this, but they need to learn it themselves. These are vital things. If you're going to be making decisions for the future of organizations of people of color, you've got to know these things, so thank you so much for sharing that. And, I hope that does get across to people. I really, really hope that's one of the things that, as we go along, CFEA is learning the the battles we need to fight and the things that we need to bring awareness to. And I didn't even know that was one of the things that we needed to bring awareness to. And now I realize that, we have to bring this awareness. So, and two things I want to ask you before we let you go. What is one thing that you want to see changed immediately in this community?
I want to see things as, and this is a broad statement, but things as it relates to Black people be normalized. just to normalize that, having a Black VP or having a a, a Black board member, not to be a Black board member, but just to be normal, just to be something that is not special, it's just normal.
Right.
It's just the expectation, not, we, if you look at predominantly white institutions, the diversity office is always African American, right? Like you always have the person, but to see people of color in positions of leadership and it be normal, and not because it's a talking point, or not because they're in, they're talking diversity, but just because they're worth it and they deserve it, and it's normalized.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And somebody asked me once, they were like, well, at what point will you be satisfied?
Right.
And my answer to that was very much what you just said. I will be satisfied when it is normal for me not to notice that there are Black people on the stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it is normal for me not to notice that there's a Black director. When it is normal for me to notice that this play was written by a Black person.
Yeah.
I will not be satisfied until all of that is normalized, when I don't flinch or take a second look, or I don't count the Black people that I see.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it's that normal, then I'm going to be satisfied.
Yeah. Or being in meetings as it relates to our industry and culture, knowing that you're going to have to be the only voice that represents us in the room.
Ooh, amen. Say that again.
I mean, how many times
to you as the voice, as if you represent the whole experience? I don't represent the whole Black experience.
Yeah. And then how many times have we said we didn't want to go to something, but we felt obligated to go, because if you don't go, your voice is because it's only going to be you in the room, right? So if you don't go, now our voice is totally gone because you're the only one.
I literally walk into rooms, especially in some of the positions that I am. I walk into the rooms and I scan the room for people of color, Black people, Latin people, because it's the first thing you do to feel like, well, what kind of era did I walk into?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do I have someone on my side?
Mm-hmm.
Or am I completely alien to this particular space? And when we no longer have to do that, right? When let's be candid, when our safety no longer depends on walking into a room
and seeing somebody that looks like you,
that looks like you, then we've gotten somewhere.
Whew.
Yep.
I know you all said only 45 minutes, so I'm sorry I'm talking too much. But this is
you're
such
not.
a great
You're
conversation.
not. It's 45 minutes to an hour, so we have some time, and I think this conversation is so important because what we're saying, we have to shed light on this. There are people in positions in this community that I have spoken the words to, like, we need you, because if you're not there, we have no one.
Yeah.
Because you're literally the only one.
Mm-hmm.
So they're like these treasures, these untouchable treasures, because we're like, listen, if you are not there, we have no one to speak for us.
Right.
And we should not be putting that kind of pressure and that kind of weight on any one person.
Yeah.
And for too long, we've done that. For too long, we've relied on this, so-called talented 10th. When we're all capable, we're all able, we need to be afforded the opportunities to show how well able and capable we are, because we have what it takes. One person does not need to bear that kind of weight and that kind of pressure.
Amen.
And we failed when we put that onus on one person.
Mm-hmm.
We failed.
Yeah.
And so we have to start looking at that. And this is why checking boxes is not okay. Yeah. If you are looking at it and you say, hey, well, I've got my one Black person, I've got my one woman, and I've got my one Asian, then let's keep it moving. You failed.
I say it all the time, because simply just doing that, you will not create any change until you change the culture.
Oh, yeah.
Because otherwise you are inviting that one Asian, that one Black person, that one Latinx, whoever. you are inviting them into more trauma if you do not change your culture first.
I love that. I'm about to put that up, Roberta, because that's
Oh yeah.
There is no change until you change the culture.
Yeah.
You have to. You have to. And so and essentially people have to understand that in doing this work, this is what we're asking for.
Yeah.
This is what we're trying to create anew. We're trying to do away with these harmful mentalities and practices and traditions, and we're trying to create a better culture, a better way of doing things. And I think that, we talk a lot about George Floyd and just the catalyst that was for everything we're experiencing now. And what we have to know is that, a lot of people were probably like, well, where did this all come from? I had someone tell me the church was never talking about white supremacy before. We were never talking about that. Well, of course we weren't talking about it.
Right.
Who was going to be talking about it?
Right.
You think the slaves were like, hey, let me tell you about this white supremacy? No, absolutely not. Of course we weren't talking about it, and so it was a catalyst to us taking the covers off of all of these things that we never were able to speak to before, that we could never shed light on. And so this is not...
It's interesting that was, and we've talked about this today, Lavon, the George Floyd. I think George Floyd, spiraled that, because it's not that it wasn't happening before. It's that we were all in our homes and we had nowhere to go.
Exactly.
And it was videoed. And so we all had to look at it. And if those things didn't happen all at the same time, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
We would not be having any of
it. Just skated over it.
Yeah.
We were in a pandemic. We were stuck. So when that video came, you had
to see it.
Yeah.
You had to see it.
Yeah.
You couldn't look away. You couldn't be distracted by the car line at school. You couldn't be distracted by, whatever was going on at work, because you were at home.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that murder, I'm not even gonna say the death, that murder of George Floyd affected so many. Like I feel like it affected, perhaps not one, but it affected the election. It affected the education system. It affected our industry. It affected the conversations that people are having at work. It affected, it got people talking. Just think about during that time how many DEI calls we were on, Zoom calls, or how many, banking industries were doing, like how many people were just wanting to talk it out or to prove that wasn't them, or to how I just remember that time. I don't know if you all read there was the Black producers wrote a white paper, and it had all sorts of Black producers and directors and Broadway Black
the White American.
Yes. I mean, I read all like 33 pages of it, and I was like, that moment, that very sad moment in our history, it got people listening, and it got people like, okay, let me make sure that I am not equated to that, and that white paper that came out was very telling of our industry and what we're doing wrong and how we can better. And even it discussed a little bit about having makeup artists that didn't necessarily have makeup that matched our skin tone, and all sorts of stuff that people were reading and listening to as a result of the racial awakening that the unfortunate death and murder of George Floyd. But it was some kind of...
I want people to know it wasn't that these things were new. It wasn't that all of a sudden we started thinking about these things.
No.
We had already been experiencing these things and going through these things. We just didn't have the opportunity to speak on it. We didn't have the voice. We didn't have the leverage to raise our voices, right?
Yeah.
Because if you raised your voice anytime before now, you would have either been dismissed or
ignored,
or not worked with again,
put on the blacklist.
put on the blacklist, all of those things. And So I think it's very important for us to acknowledge the time in history that we are in, and we need to also pay attention to what is happening now that these things are no longer in the headlines, now that our emotions are no longer flared. What is happening? How are people settling? How is the work settling? And I will be so very, very honest and candid. I think that people were banking on people just being excited to get back to work.
Yeah.
So we're going to say what we need to say. We're going to put out the statements. We stand in solidarity. And now it's time to get back to things as usual. Really? Have we not been talking about this for a year and 4 months?
Right.
Did you not think we were serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were banking on us just being excited to get back to work.
Right.
So now I feel like now is even more pivotal than then, because this is where the rubber meets the road. Did you actually mean the things that you were saying? Did you actually intend to change anything? Yeah. Because now we get to see who actually, intended to change the culture. And sad to say, both Broadway and locally, there's not very many that can say that.
And what resources are you putting to change the culture? Like, so just a Facebook post saying that Black Lives Matter is not enough.
It's not enough.
That's not enough. What resources? So what resources are you offering, or what conversations are we having, and what internal action committees are you creating within your industry or your corporation or whatever? Black Lives Matter post, it did make me feel better. I'll be honest. I did feel better when I saw some of the posts, but we're a year and a half not. Yeah.
And it's why, and I know we gotta go, but I gotta say this.
Okay. And I'm a hush.
Because we're here. It's why I get so scared. Scared might not be the word I'm looking for, but y'all know where I'm going. When we see we have this new DEI position, and I go, just one?
Right.
Just one, and you're going to put that whole baggage on that one position, and we're supposed to be okay with just that, and those are popping up everywhere. And every time I see them, I'm like, we got to talk about that. Because again, that has nothing to do with your leadership. That has nothing to do with your staff. That has nothing to do with your board, right? That one person not shoulder the baggage
of changing your culture. Because you also have to remember that when they add these positions, what do you always see in the description? Answers to the president,
reports to.
I'm sorry.
Those people, that only works if those people are on the same level.
Exactly.
You tell me you're bringing in a DEI person, you have a head of an organization, and you're bringing in a co-head DEI organization. Work together, then we can play, because that is the only way that's gonna make sense.
The only way. But no, but I don't think anybody is planning for that. They're not planning for that type of co-collaboration. They're not expecting that is what that position will be. Okay, we need you to just take care of the racial issues while we continue to do what
they come up. You go
exactly. This is not how that works. I'm not here to be a face for you. I'm not here to be, for all intents and purposes, like, a pawn for you to use and bring out, because that's the trick bag we've always been in. That's the same thing. There's no difference in that. So we really, really need to even think about the way that we are instituting DEI. And that's one of the things that CFEA really wants to bring awareness to in organizations, and helping them structure and go on their DEI journey, because it has to be more effective than that. It has to be.
Yeah.
Ladies, oh gosh, I could talk. Why didn't I jump in sooner? Because I just love talking to y'all. Okay, Lavon, one more thing, and this is going to leave it at this. What is the win that you are most proud of from this season of time? With everything that you've seen, what are you most proud of?
Can I do two?
You can do
Okay.
whatever you want.
One would be just I'm going to go back a couple years when Hamilton came to the Dr. Phillips Center. We found the resources to bring probably 800 underserved students to come see Hamilton, and we had to purchase those. We had to purchase those tickets. So as you know, Hamilton does not give free tickets at all, and they won't allow it. And some of those kids that were able to come see Hamilton was, of course, Pace Center for Girls. And it just was really special to me to expose them. That was the first Broadway show that any of the girls there had seen. And it was just so important. So that was just a big heartfelt win for me, or service win. And then a win as it relates to in the middle of this pandemic was, if you recall, the Martin Luther King parade was closed. Didn't happen this year, the one that happens in the city of downtown Orlando. And I hooked up with the MLK Commission and had them do the parade showcase on the front yard. It was one of the first shows we did on the front yard. So I feel like, MLK Day, and I told you that I have a special relationship in my head with the life and legacy of Martin Luther King. And the fact that the MLK parade happened on the front yard, it was reimagined. So we took all of the groups that usually, the drum lines and all the groups that performed in the Martin Luther King parade, and put them on our stage in the front yard. And it was just a very rewarding experience to still be able to honor. They say so many things were canceled. Martin Luther King Day was not canceled. So it was great. Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, those are both huge wins.
Yeah.
Not just for you, but for our community and the people that you are reaching and touching. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your excellence. We are excited to partner with you. We have some things cooking that we'll be able to announce hopefully soon.
Yeah.
But thank you for joining forces with us. Thank you for being a voice. Thank you for being a light. And thank you for being here tonight with us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you all doing this. And, if I could be of any further service to CFEA, you all just let me know. I think you're doing a good work, and this is just the beginning. So the best is indeed yet to come.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, Roberta.
I know.
Wow. Wow. Somebody said have a part two. We might have to have a part two.
Incredible. She is incredible.
So incredible. Both of you, just amazing.
And honestly, I'm just going to put it out there. Our friend Joe teaches us, you just got to say it. Like, have a part two. Absolutely. Let's invite her back, because I would love to put her and Laura in the same place, because Laura's doing some great things at the Dr. Phillips Center as well, especially in terms of education. You talk about a Black female educator running that education program over there. Those two ladies over there are
wow.
I think that would be a great conversation. So if we can get the both of them in one spotlight, we might need longer than an hour, though. I'm telling you.
We might need a part two, part three. I love it though. And we need to really continue to make people aware of what's going on, in the community. Because I will be honest, I didn't even know about the Freedom Series. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I mean, because I've also definitely been a COVID hermit, so in my house. But that I went to one of the most recent front yard things, and it was so safe. I felt, I had my own little pod and my own little food in my pod, and I felt very, very, very safe. And
it's amazing.
So, it's something that I'm very proud of her for bringing that out. So we're going to wrap up, guys. A couple of things we want to let you all know about. We have been talking about it, but we want to make sure that you all are aware that the CFEA Black Book is alive and kicking. We're so excited about it. Listen, I'm going to need to let y'all know. We have so many producers, artistic directors, casting directors. They are looking for us. Okay. So this is, when we talked about Black excellence being supported and how we have to show up for ourselves, when Roberta mentioned that is so important. We've got to show up for ourselves. So this resource is out there and they are utilizing it. Trust me, I get calls every day. Who do you know that does? Who do you know that does? They are looking for us. So make sure that you are submitted to the Black Book. Your information is there, that you are listed, because they are definitely utilizing that tool. And don't be mad when your friends that are on there are booking everything and you're wondering why, because they're going there to get, to get people who they know are talented and excellent in what they do. So make sure that you get listed there. Also, they are sending us their opportunities, both employment opportunities and auditions. So please go check back often, because it's literally changing daily. Opportunities are being listed there daily. Desiree Montez is doing a great job of managing that site and making sure that all of the opportunities are there. So please utilize that. Submissions are happening every single day. So we can't say that, there's nothing out there for us, because it definitely is, and they are definitely looking. So please, please, please check back. And
let's make sure we know too that as an organization, CFEA is committed to making sure when you get into these positions that we are making sure you're going to be taken care of, right? Because that is the full circle. It's like, well, they're going on the Black Book, and are they inviting us into cultures that aren't for us? Well, maybe. And then that's when we step back in. But either way, we've got to show up first.
Exactly. And that's, I'm so glad that you mentioned that, Roberta, because we need to continually let the community know we have specific teams that are here for each segment of this industry. That if you have an issue, if you find that something is problematic, if something is harmful, you can come to us and let us know, and we will advocate for you. We will advocate for you. That is why we are the Central Florida Entertainment Advocacy.
And the Black Book is not open-ended, because if we find out somebody who's not taking care of us, they can't use the Black Book no more.
Exactly. We will make sure that, that people know if there is someone who is doing harm and not willing to, take advice for structural change or whatever, then, and then you got to cut it. We gonna cut it. Like, that's what we are here fighting for you. And I don't think people really know how hard we're working. Please trust. We are working so hard for you guys, because we want a better future. We want a better future. We are fighting. And Desiree said this, and I will continue to shout it from the rooftops. I love when she said this. She said, we're doing this. We're putting in this work now so that future generations do not have to do it.
Amen.
We're putting in all of this work now, and it may seem like, seem like we're handing them a platter, but we're doing it now so that future generations do not have to do it. So trust that what we do is for the best interest of you all and our community and future generations. Please trust us in that. Thank you again, Roberta. Also, our website is up and available. There are so many resources there. So there are so many things there. I'm going to encourage our allies. Please visit our community pledge, not just so that you can say that you're doing the right thing, but I want you to go back and read that, refamiliarize yourself with what it is we're looking for and asking for in our allies. Revisit the points of action from our forum to see if your organization or you as an individual are lining up with these things. We are opening. The world is opening. Central Florida is opening. And I will say that if you are opening any type of entertainment, arts and entertainment structure or program or production, and you do not have a clear and visible racial tolerance policy or racial code of conduct, you've missed it. You've missed it. If you need help, let us know. But if you don't have that, then everything you've been saying is in vain. So please revisit those things. Please make sure that you're doing checks and balances to ensure that you are providing a safe place for people of color. So again, thank you so much for joining us for the CFEA Spotlight. We will continue to have these discussions. We will continue to show you what is going on in our community and the wins that are happening, the triumphs that are happening. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Thanks again, Roberta.
Thank you.